the natural world. It is why things work the way they do in this natural world, okay? One of the biggest proponents for evolution are people who call themselves scientists. Now, a scientist, by definition, is just someone who studies science. Someone who studies science. Now, they claim evolution to be science. And they make this big claim against creationists, which is, if you're a Christian, what you should be, a creationist. They make this big claim against creationists that the debate is really science versus religion. What is the underlying implication of that? When they in the newspapers, when they say this kind of debate is science versus religion, what is the implication?
Religion versus creation.
Well, they're saying the religious part is the creation part, but they're saying that evolution is part of science. Mark. Myth versus fact. That's their underlying implication there, right? They're saying this is a myth, this is what people believe. Evolution is a fact. But did you know there are 6 forms of evolution? 6 definitions of evolution, okay? I think 5 of these 6 are stupid. Okay? Now, that may be a strong word for some of you, telling your kids and your grandkids, don't say the word stupid. But I think that's the best word for it. Let's define a few terms here. Stupid, lacking normal intelligence, foolish, silly, dull, and boring. I think evolution is stupid. Now, there are 6 definitions to evolution. First, we have cosmic evolution. That's the beginning of time, the beginning of everything, what they would call the Big Bang. And then we have chemical evolution, which is the evolution of all the elements in the periodic table from hydrogen. A lot of people don't think about that, but that has to happen for all of this to have occurred from the Big Bang, is chemical evolution. The next one is stellar evolution. Stellar evolution. That's the form and the origin of the stars, the sun, the moon, all the planetary beings. And then the next definition is organic evolution. That is the origin of life. How did life get started? And then we have macroevolution. Somebody define macroevolution for me. You might have heard that term before. Macroevolution. Macroevolution is generally accepted as the change of one animal kind to another animal kind over time. Then there's microevolution as compared to macroevolution. Microevolution is the variation within a species. Okay? I want to tell you tonight, or this morning, that microevolution is a fact of science. Now, the preacher just said evolution was a fact of science. Microevolution is a fact of science. We see that. We do that. If you ever seen a type of animal produce a variety of different kinds of animals from that one species, that is microevolution. If you were raised on a dairy farm like I was, you know very well that not all cows look the same. And I'm so thankful for that. We know the cows by how the differences they look like. Well, that happens for every kind of living creature. Cows, dogs, roses, people. Because you look different is because of microevolution. Now, I don't think we should call it that. I don't like calling it microevolution. The reason I don't like calling that is because it gives some kind of license in other people's minds that macroevolution is real. I think we should just call it speciation or variation, because that's what it is. But that is a real thing. The first 5 that I mentioned are not. They are stupid. The Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That is very different than what evolutionists claim happened. Very different. Now, you may be somebody who is a theistic evolutionist. A theistic evolutionist is someone who tries to mix what the Bible says with what evolutionists say. And we've already seen how that doesn't work. And the reason that doesn't work is because they're opposite. They're very different from each other. So let's start with this Big Bang theory, okay? Let's start with the cosmic evolution scale and work our way down. Now, I told you this is going to take 3 Sundays to do this. We're going to work our way down, trying to pick it apart, okay? Do you know how many stars there are in the known universe? Just the ones we know about. We can estimate. The ones that we have either seen or we can estimate, okay? There are zillions of stars, literally zillions, that's not just some kind of made up number. There's literally zillions of stars. There are enough stars in the universe that every person on earth today could personally own 20 trillion. Think about that. Every person on earth today could personally own 20 trillion stars. That's how many stars we know about in the known universe. You know, with all those stars, we have never ever seen one star form. You ever know that? We never actually seen a star form. Now we see them blow up from time to time. We see them die. That's called a nova or a supernova, depending on how big the explosion is. But we never actually see them form. Now some evolutionists would say, and some especially atheistic evolutionists would say, well, we've estimated that if 20 were to explode near each other, there would be enough energy and enough force and enough matter that it would all create one new star. So that I say, well, you got to lose 20 to gain 1. That's brilliant. Got to lose 20 to gain 1. These people should run for Congress. Help ourselves borrow our way out of debt. You have to lose 20 to gain 1. That doesn't make sense. That's scientifically impossible to happen. Now, I want you to notice that we've never actually ever seen a star form, but we see them blow up almost every 30 years. Roughly, a star blows up and dies every 30 years. And star births, in my mind at least, should at least in some way equal star deaths. Okay? You know how many novas or supernovas we can actually see? We only see roughly around 300 of them. Now they last. They actually, you can see them in the sky. We only have seen roughly around 300 of them. That's only a few thousand years. There should be millions and millions of novas and supernovas we can see if it was all billions of years old. Now here's their story, okay? About 20 billion years ago, the Big Bang happened. And about 4.6 billion years ago, Earth formed. And about 3 point something million, I think 3.8 million or billion years ago, life started to form. And about 50 million years ago, we as humans started to form. Okay, that's kind of the timeline in the evolutionist mind. That is very different than a creationist timeline. Someone who actually takes the Bible for what it says. How old do you suppose the Bible says it is? Now, it never directly says how old it is. Now, I know that. But we can be intelligent enough and forward-thinking enough to actually do the research on ourselves. And if we're actually taking the Bible for what it says and how it's written, roughly how old is the earth and the universe?
From 6 to 10,000 years.
From 6 to 10,000 years. True or false? That is different than 20 billion years. A little bit different than 20 billion years. So, either one is right or they're both wrong. Both cannot be right. So you cannot mix the two together. There was a creationist one time who was flying to this speaking engagement, and he was talking to this evolutionist on a plane with him. The guy wasn't traveling with him, he just happened to sit next to an evolutionist. And they got to talking, and the evolutionist started asking him questions about what he believed. And the creationist turned around and started asking him questions about what he believed. Now, the evolutionist taught at Berkeley. Raise your hand if you know what Berkeley is. Berkeley, the college. Berkeley. Berkeley is not a Bible college. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Berkeley is not a Bible college. He says, the evolutionist says, I teach astrophysics at Berkeley. And the creationist asked him, do you believe in the Big Bang? And the evolutionist said, yes, I do believe in the Big Bang. I believe that's how we got here. And the creationist is like, well, I guess you have to teach at Berkeley. And so the evolutionist says, or the creationist asked, can I ask you a few questions? And the evolutionist says, sure, what would you like to know? He says, how long ago did this Big Bang happen? When did that happen? Oh, about 20 billion years ago. Okay. Can you explain what actually happened there? He said, well, sure. About 20 billion years ago, there was a singularity of matter in a very dense, very hot region about the size of a period on a piece of paper. Wrap your minds around this, okay? A period on a piece of paper. Okay, let me show you this. This is my piece of paper. That's a period. Can you see that? No, you can't see that. It's small. About the size of a period on a piece of paper. All of the matter in the universe was condensed into this little hot region, this infinitesimal region, and was spinning. It was spinning fast. And then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, it exploded. Or really, it's more like it stretched out more than it exploded, but it looks like, when we explain it, it looks like an explosion. It exploded. Test. Hey, there we are. Okay, so this little infinitesimal region exploded. And that was about 20 billion years ago, and now we have all that we have here after billions of years of evolution. I'll stand right here. I don't have to walk around. I just like to do that. Yeah, I could, but I feel like with my look, that would just cause new problems. Okay, I'm just going to leave that there. Okay, so about 20 billion years ago, this matter was in this hot infinitesimal region and exploded. And then the creationists asked, where did the matter come from? And the evolutionists said, we don't know that for sure. Okay, where did the energy come from? I mean, somebody had to buy the gas to run this machine. Where did the energy come from? We don't know that for sure. Okay, where did the space come from? We have to have, for a continuum to exist, there has to be time, space, and matter entering into existence all at the same time. Where did that come from? We don't know that for sure either. He says, oh, I see. And then the creationist asked a pretty funny question. He says, do you know what a merry-go-round is? Raise your hand if you know what a merry-go-round is. You ever played on a merry-go-round? They're quite fun. It's one of those things you sit on and spin on until you throw up. Those are a merry-go-round, okay? The creationist asked, do you have a merry-go-round at Berkeley? And the evolutionist said, no, we don't have a merry-go-round at Berkeley. It's like, you ought to get one. You can learn a lot of good science. Here comes my rescuer. Just pretend like you don't see this. You were thinking about to teach like this? Yeah. No pressure, Dalen. It's all on you now. We good to go?
Yeah.
Get all this hooked up again. No. Oh, no. That's why I didn't want you to see it. This is awkward. All right, I think we're good again. Can you hear me? You good? Good? Cool? Good? All right. Hopefully that works. All right, anyway. you can learn a lot of good science on a merry-go-round, is what the creationists said to the evolutionists, okay? You get fourth graders on a merry-go-round. I don't think anybody in here is in the fourth grade. Fourth grade is a pretty fun year. At least I had fun at fourth grade. And I like using fourth graders as an example sometimes because they're expendable. And so you get a bunch of fourth graders on a merry-go-round, and you have the football team come out and push this merry-go-round in a circle, okay? What you first see is they enter phase one, okay? It's where they're screaming, faster, faster, can you go any faster? Just keep pushing. Then they enter phase two. This thing is tugging at me. I don't like it. Let's try to fix this here. I think that's better. Then they enter phase two, where they don't say anything. They're silent. They're just trying to hold on for dear life, okay? This is about at 40 miles an hour. Then you enter phase three at about 70 miles an hour, where they're screaming again, but they're saying, stop, stop, slow down, stop. And then if you keep spinning, you enter phase four. Now, this is where they fly off the merry-go-round at 100 miles an hour, okay? Don't actually do this, I'm just saying. It's for the example. They fly off the merry-go-round at 100 miles an hour. What happens when you see that is a phenomenon of science. It's called the conservation of angular momentum. I know that's a pretty scientific term. I don't want to get too scientific with the terms because I don't want to lose anybody. Because I can lose myself pretty easy. I lost myself a lot trying to study this. Who has ever heard of the conservation of angular momentum? Conservation? Three people have heard of the conservation of angular momentum. Okay. What that is because the inside of something is spinning faster than the outside, things that fly off of this are going to be spinning in the same direction. Okay? So if you're spinning this merry-go-round clockwise and the kids fly off, they'll be spinning clockwise. Pay attention to that. This merry-go-round is spinning clockwise. The kids fly off. They'll be spinning clockwise until they hit some kind of resistance like a tree or something. Okay? And so the evolutionist said, yes, I have heard of the conservation of angular momentum. I think his intelligence, he felt a little insulted there in his intelligence. The creationist said, that's interesting that you've heard of that. If that's the case, then why do two planets spin backwards from each other? Think about that. Why do two planets spin backwards from each other? If all of the matter in the universe was in this hot infinitesimal region, the size of a period on a page, spinning, and it exploded, and there's no resistance in empty space. Why do two planets in our own solar system spin backwards from each other? Uranus and Saturn and Venus spin backwards from each other. And 6 moons spin backwards from each other. That doesn't work so well for the Big Bang Theory. The law of conservation, or the law of the conservation of angular momentum, is something that speaks against the Big Bang Theory. Well, the evolutionist said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Why two planets are spinning backwards from each other." Then he asked the creationist, "Why do you think that is?" The creationist was thinking, "Oh, I was hoping he'd ask that." And then he started giving him the Bible story, okay? So that's how you can use science to evangelize. I bring that point up to show that we can even see through science that what most scientists today can't see through science. Okay? We can see through science what most scientists cannot see through science. Give me a second to get through this piece of paper here. I want you to also realize something here, that and evolution are both inherently religious beliefs. Now, I know the scientists today, and I'm not against scientists. I'm not against science, and I'm not against schools. I'm not against textbooks. I'm not against learning. I'm very much for those things. As a Christian, I think we have to be for those things. We should be for those things. That's something that's very good for us to grow as people. Okay? To grow as people. And if we're ignorant of the things of this world, then That's not good for us. We can't really evangelize effectively if we're ignorant of these things, okay? So I'm not against those things. I'm very much for those things. But I want you to realize that there are some evil things being taught, some poisonous things being taught in our textbooks to our kids, to our grandkids, each and every day. Tonight, some of your kids may be doing this for homework. And I'm not against teachers. There's plenty of good, godly teachers in the system. And sometimes they can't help it. And they feel uncomfortable with teaching something they don't even believe in. But our tax dollars and our kids are learning this. These are things that, as we'll see, science itself refutes. It doesn't even make sense to believe in it. Even, okay, say you're not a Christian. Say you don't believe in God. Say you don't even believe in creation, okay? Say that's not your first forethought there, okay? Evolution itself, if you actually are a respecter of what science teaches, does not stand up to science itself. Yet it's being taught every single day as the method of how everything got here. And it's causing young people doubts and confusion, causing them to leave the church. And I think that's for three main reasons. Three main reasons. One, because of the obvious that evolution is being taught, it is introducing a new form of belief that's taught in school as opposed to what's being taught in church. So oftentimes in church we have in classes, I'm not against Sunday school classes or anything like this, but I've seen this in many churches before, where we teach them songs as little kids and growing up. We teach them songs and we teach them Bible stories, and we have these pictures on the wall of these cartoonish characters. And it's fun and games. And then they get to school and they learn something that's completely different. And in their own minds, they can be learning one thing. At school, I'm learning what's true, and at church, it's just story time. That could be one reason. Another reason is bad parenting. Okay, I'm not about to talk about parenting. That's a different lesson. I don't really feel qualified to talk about parenting yet either. But bad parenting, think about that. If we are responsible, those who are parents, those who are grandparents, you are responsible for what your kid learns. Did you know that? The government is not responsible for what your kid learns. It is not. Now, I'm not against public schools, but the government is not responsible for what your kids retain. You are. And when our kids grow up in the church and are some of the most God-fearing people growing up, and then all of a sudden they leave the church because of this high school teaching in science class, and then even college teaching in college classes, and it's not rebuked or taught differently or corrected at home, why do we expect our children to stay? They're getting answers from other people they think they can trust, when we, as parents and grandparents, aren't even giving the answers we should be. I'm not saying that again. I'm not saying that any of you. I'm just saying that's a big reason. It's poor parenting. And a third reason, I think, it's just because the devil is crafty. The devil knows exactly what to do in our society, because we've let him, what to do in our society to make that breaking line. The devil, have you ever noticed, the devil never approaches anyone with temptation directly to break their entire trust in God. Not at first, at least. He comes as an angel of light, right? He comes as someone who chips away one bit at a time. Chips away at what you think is true, one bit at a time. And sometimes we just let that get the best of us, unfortunately. That's why we're having this class. Not only, because we already talked about why the Bible is true, why God is real, and why Christ is the Son of God. We've already proved that. What we're talking about now is why this theory, that is the number one theory, working today that a lot of people believe in against the Word of God is stupid. Not just, it doesn't just make sense to people who are outside of the faith. People outside of the faith, though they shouldn't be, people outside of the faith can, if they trust science and they actually look at science, find evolution to be stupid. It does not hold up to scientific review. Christians should not be against education. They should not be against learning. It is, in fact, Christians who should be teaching truth, because it is Christians who should know the truth more than any other person in the world. That's the entire point. We're trying to make more Christians, right? Have more people follow Christ, give their life for Christ. But creation and evolution are inherently religious, okay? It takes belief in them. It takes belief in them for it to work. Okay? Now, somebody who is a scientist or evolutionist may say, I don't think so. But it does, okay? Pretty much for us, it's in the beginning God. And since they can't actually say what was there, who put it there, or how long ago for sure, they can't know that for sure, and they can't actually test that, which goes against the definition of science anyway. They pretty much believe in the beginning dirt. We believe in the beginning God. They believe in the beginning dirt. They're both religious. There are two differences between the two of them, though. These are the two key differences. One, creation has evidence that backs it up. We've looked at that. We looked how creation has all the evidence that points towards it. Two, evolution is tax funded. Those are the two differences. I'm not necessarily saying teach creation in science class, because it is inherently religious. I think we should teach truth in school. I think truth should always be taught in school. Fact should be taught in school. And I'm fine with this is going to be weird hearing this from a preacher. I'm fine with not actually teaching every religion in school. I want religious freedom in school. I think prayer should be in school. I don't necessarily think that teaching creation in a science classroom is the right place. Because creation, though true, isn't scientific. It's not. We cannot test it. We cannot observe it. We could not test it. It goes against the definition of science. We should be teaching scientific things. But by that same token, by the merit of that, we should not be teaching things that obviously fly in the face of science, like evolution. We talked about how Darwin, the way this theory seemed to arise is that he looked at microevolution that we've already talked about, the different variations within a species, and assumed macroevolution. He looked at microevolution and said, oh, there's these different finches, there's these different sea turtles, there's these different tortoises, there's these different iguanas. He looked at that and then for some reason assumed they all had a common ancestor. All had a common ancestor somehow because there's similarities. That's a big assumption. And of course, science has assumptions with it. You have to have assumptions to make a hypothesis. That's how that works. But we do not have conclusions based on assumptions. We cannot have conclusions based off assumptions. That's not science. Science has to go through what we call now the scientific method. That concept has always been there, but we have a name for it now, and we have to actually go through it. We have to form our hypothesis, and we have to test, and then let the test bring about the result. And then we believe whatever the result and evidence points to, okay? Whatever it is, we will believe what the evidence points to, because that's, remember, as we talked about at the very beginning of this study, that is what makes us a rational person. Being an irrational person is someone who sees where the evidence leads and refuses to believe it. If we believe where the evidence leads, we will believe the truth. And we've seen how the truth is creation. Now, I'm going to warn you, in the next couple weeks, they're going to get pretty scientific. Okay, there are going to be some scientific things. I'll try to explain them so we don't get too lost. Okay, because I don't want anybody to get lost. I can get lost myself pretty easy, even though I like science. The next 2 weeks are going to be pretty scientific. But I think that's necessary in further burying this theory that is a godless, hateful, and as we'll see, racist theory. Thank you.